they say 3 times is a charm. So here we go. It's Cheryl Millett, live at 5, Mondays on Facebook. And it's always, sometimes I really look forward to coming on board here on Mondays because of the various topics and the various things that are shared from people in the community, just wherever I'm traveling. So Live at 5 is all things healthy, and the idea is to come on board here and to bring in these ideas, thoughts, things that are coming about, whether it's through my research, through people that I get to meet. And one of the things that comes up, hi Lydia, one of the things that is coming up past several months is actually this topic around neurosis. And it's interesting because it seems like a very broad topic as far as there are several signs. So I was just privy to a presentation by a medical doctor who's actually a specialist medical doctor, but the idea was he had stumbled upon, so he's not a psychiatrist, he's nothing like that, but he had stumbled upon over the course of years information that he thought was very helpful. Now, I didn't get the story yet as to why he wrote this book on neurosis, why he's got this presentation, and why it's, why that kind of came about to him. But there are some parallels with the egoic work that I do and help out people and in that kind of area. But it's very much in the medical language, though. And there are definitely experts and people that he's tuned into. But here is something that parallels something that is in my book, which is in the 1960s, let's say, there's this therapy that exists that this doctor now in his 90s, Canadian doctor, is actually working with. And it's been around since then. But as he asks people in the profession, nobody knows about it. But yet it's very effective. And he knows this to be true because he's friends with this person, a medical, more like a psychiatrist, but somebody here in Canada. And even with me in writing the book, there are things that I stumbled upon that wouldn't sound crazy to you, but doctors 100 years ago knew about, wrote about, and could see how it worked. And it really makes a lot of sense even to what we're doing today. So these things happen. And in ways as well, there are things that don't even exist to science at periods of time, like for instance washing your hands, and the thousands of women that died in childbirth due to the infection from some doctor going from an autopsy to delivering a baby. And yet one doctor had discovered if they all wash their hands at his hospital, then the rate went down significantly to like 2%. I'm trying to remember the number. So it was very high to about 2%. Of course, complications back then were other things as well. Baby turned around, breech birth, those kind of things. But that lasted for 50 years until the microscope came in. And then and only then could the mainstream doctors actually see that they were spreading germs, and that's what was happening. So on two fronts here, one is a topic that I think will bring more attention to the way we react or what's going on inside us that's actually causing health issues for us, causing dysfunctioning with relationships as well, neurosis. And this, on one front, is something that people are, if you are aware of it and you don't like it, you're asking for help. But in a lot of cases, people are comfortable with just taking the meds, which is not getting at the root cause. And that is so true. A number of medical professionals are understanding that the medications and the medicines don't get at the root cause. Of course it's needed. Medicines are needed for many different reasons, even, just surgery and operations, sterilizing, in some ways we think of that as medical too. And then on the other side is understanding that at times things can be around for a while. Things can have come into science and even medicine, but that the average person doesn't know about them. The average person wouldn't know about them because it doesn't, on a couple fronts, tie into drugs. It doesn't tie into business, so you're not going to see the marketing unless they can make money off of it. As I get into doing more workshops and retreats, this is what some of it is dealing with. It's dealing with the things that are unsettling, the feelings that you don't like, the feelings of are even being angry. I mean, do you get angry when somebody cuts you off? But how do you work with that is neurosis, where you're holding on to that, right? So somebody cut you off, and okay, you just release something, you got angry, but then hours later, you're still stewing about it or thinking about it, or the day later. So some of these feelings and emotions are actually carrying on for longer periods of time to various different degrees. But can you imagine if things happen and you actually feel more at peace and you go to that space where you don't understand? You know, maybe the person behind me is in a rush, maybe his wife is in the backseat ready to deliver a baby. I mean, we just don't know. And quite often we're reacting from our own self, which actually, for me, gives signals and ideas and signs that there's actually even that within us to release to begin with. So that's, I just kind of wanted to, and I know that's kind of very vague, and I'm feeling it's vague. I'm feeling we can talk about neurosis that much more. The egoic mind, or the alter, you can call it the negative ego or the altered ego, you know, that whole field can be talked about for hours. And the idea is everyone is also unique in their situations, right? Their situations through life, where they are today, how they think about things, their beliefs. There is uniqueness there, and that really, you know, the one-on-one is very, very important on that respect. But that was one thing. The other thing I wanted to speak about today. So yes, if you have any, hello, Angel, hello, Sherry, and Carol, and Lydia, Sophie, Bibi, Daniel. Yeah, thank you. Hello, thanks for coming on board. So we just kind of briefly spoke about neurosis, and actually I see the parallel. I see the connection with the egoic mind. So that's neurosis. The other thing I want to talk about is something that seems absolutely, because I was talking about science earlier, about how science is to where it is, or only to where it is, right? And sometimes certain things are not, how can I say it, accepted for the reasons that they're not. Maybe it's just a choice that they don't want to believe it for whatever reason. But here's something that falls into that. And today, day and age, you might think, well, how can that even possibly exist? I know we are smarter, we have technology, we have all these experts, but it does exist. This is why I want to talk about this, and this is root canals. So root canals is interesting because I do write about it in my book, but then I had somebody review my book and they wanted to know more information and actually have some current research. So I reached out to my good friend who's a holistic dentist, Dr. Hans Schwartz, and he sent me a lovely email back, and we're going to have some conversation this week. But the idea is root canals or teeth as being alive. There's live tissue and has a lot of canals in it. Actually, you have the root canal and there's the canal there, but the canals within the tooth it's just not straight like this. There's that canal, yes, but there's a lot of branches that come from that, which would be no different when we're thinking about our whole body and the nervous system and how that is working too. So the tooth is live, and my understanding is there's infections there. And in fact, when infections happen, there's more than 7,000 emergencies that people just, when they have an infection in the root canal, it is so hindering for them, be it from pain and sleepiness and stuff. They're going to emergency. They're not waiting to go see their dentist the next day. They're running to emergency. That's how the root canal, the infection that's there, is bothering them. The idea is that some infections happen because you can think of it as breaches in the skin. Once upon a time, I read this story about giving vaccines, but they made a cut in the skin, and then they would add the live, whatever you call it, the live measles virus or whatever it is there. But people were dying because they breached that, and then the blood gets involved, and then things happen and infection happens. Well, we have the gums here, and if there's any breach, there's an infection. Now, the idea to go in and drill through and only capture that part of the root canal, but also the idea is to do that correctly. So that's what I got from Dr. Hans's email, is to do that correctly. Because if you drill too far, then you're accessing other parts of the body. The lymph is all through our body. The blood, I mean, do you not bleed from your gums? Absolutely. So you have that circulatory system there as well. And this causes issues with that. So you can mask it with just, drilling, but not taking all of it out. And this is where I think the crux is. Even the researchers on the root cause. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this movie, Root Cause, but there's this documentary out, and I went looking for it because there was some research that was mentioned in there, and I wanted to first explore that again. When I went to go look for root cause, I discovered that Netflix took it off. They took it off, and they banned it, took it off, removed it. So I went exploring as to why they did this, and just blanket blurts out there were, well, it's not proven scientifically. But then I found this website, who's this person who's, I think she's a dental hygienist. I'm not sure what the acronym, what it is. Hi, Sherry. So here you have this movie that was created, and I just will briefly touch on base. You have this movie, and this movie touches on where a guy had a trauma. He was punched in the face really bad, and of course that would have, again, remember I was talking about the barriers. When those are removed and things are shifted around and you have access and things can get in there, of course the mouth, of all places in the body, has a microbiome just under the microbiome that we actually have in our large colon. It's underneath it. Well, why wouldn't it be? Air, fingers, cutlery, fork, spoon, knife, all that stuff, all the food that we're exposing the mouth to. Very easy to expose the mouth to germs and bacteria and viruses. And if you have things like gums that are, again, from trauma, then you end up having, that potential. So this fella, he had chronic fatigue, he had issues, and the idea, the reason why he did the movie was he actually explored all kinds of modalities, even spiritual things, meditation, EFT, all of these things. But I believe that his infection was so bad that they hadn't caught it. And that's what he kind of says as well. They hadn't caught it. And for years, it affected his sex drive. It affected so many things the movie went through. When he finally came to, and he kept looking. So what courage is that? What perseverance is that? And he found a dentist, and they had to use a different x-ray. So that was part of it. He couldn't see the x-ray. The x-rays, or the typical x-rays, could not see the infection. But there's a certain CAT scan or something that they have out there. And through that way of scanning, they were able to see it. Once that was removed, once that was properly taken care of, instantly felt better. Energy, aches, pains, all these various things that he had had for a number of years went away. That's the root cause. That's the movie or the documentary. And some of the things that they quoted in there It was what it sounded like. There was a bit of uproar on it. And my understanding is, through the research I've now read, is that there are two sides to this. But the American Dental Association has not taken, they've just taken the side that it's, is there enough evidence, or no, you're not going to be against root canals. But the dentists themselves are speaking out about it. And this is where, in the research, and even this dental hygienist who was commenting on the root cause coming off, and she went to do her research, and at the end of it all, she was even left with the question of, I got to read more. There's something to this. This is not necessarily. So through her research, and all her research links there, and I went and read a couple of them. They're difficult to read. They're PubMed, so they're the lingo is there, and I'm not familiar with the lingo as much. But having read it enough, the idea is there's absolutely infections that happen in the root canal area, and if a root canal is not done properly, quite often there's an infection there because it wasn't done properly. And properly, from what I'm understanding, is you have to be very careful of how you treat it and what you do and how far you go and what you leave in there. And do you affect the ligaments that are in there? And is the tooth itself that had the infection populated with this bacteria? And it would be in the finer canals within the tooth, and not just the root canal. And if it's in these finer canals, they're not removed when you do a root canal. They actually stay there. And what does bacteria do? But it grows, right? It grows. And if you've infected the circulatory or lymph system, then it can get into your body. And if you read about periodontal disease, even if we just let's just kind of bring something that absolutely makes sense to the dentist, and that association is that periodontal disease, there's absolutely that excess bacteria, things that are hanging out there that continuously get swallowed, and they have shown correlation to cardiovascular health through gingivitis or periodontal disease. And that should bring to our mind that there's something to that. So we just don't want infection lingering and bacteria growing within our teeth, and it's not being supported by the lymph or the bloodstream. But if there is an infiltration or an access to the lymph and bloodstream, then that infection from the root canal, the tooth, and that's coming into that space, then it would have access to your body. And there's meridians there. That's a whole other part of it too. The meridians would be affected by the toxic overload. And then now we're getting into energy and things like that. But the meridians, when they're affected, your whole teeth, there's many dental charts just from a meridian standpoint that show, this tooth is connected to liver and kidney, and this tooth is connected, to the heart. So all the key organs, there's like a map. You can look up, that's easily to access. I encourage you to explore that just to see at one level where the science is. These meridians from the teeth are connected through to the various body, sections of part through these meridians. That's all I'm going to talk about is root canals. I don't really know if anybody has any questions on it, but I am absolutely got a nice piece of it in the book, and I'm going to expand on that with a current holistic dentist who really was explaining to me how he deals with them now, these infections. Not the root canal as in the procedure. Now, there's two different things. People are getting infections in the root canal, and then they're having the root canal procedure. And that's causing continued infection. So there's kind of difference. You have an infection, and you want to deal with it. And the procedures that are used is what's causing continued and possibly, as to this movie, Root Cause, serious issues. And maybe some of us who have immune compromised scenarios going on would actually be more affected by it, right? It's not cut and dry. I don't like to work with cut and dry only because we've got to look at the bigger picture. We've got to look at the whole picture. Absolutely, but it's quite often I will ask, or actually it is part of my intake form with clients, asking about the dental work that they're done. And I have had a situation where I'll just talk to this one situation where the person was talking, we're going all about the signs and symptoms that they're having, and they had a chest pain. And I had asked about the root canal, so we looked on the meridian, it's the root canal, the timing, and doing the trauma chart, because that's usually related to even dental work is a trauma to the body. So this actually correlated for her. It wasn't really the goal that we're doing, but it kind of makes you relax a bit rather than thinking there's some serious issues there. So then I have to educate her on the root canal and dental procedures and how they might be affecting, and something we have to go into. So there we go. So far we've talked about neurosis. I think it's a very big, important topic. Don't get hung up with the name. Alter ego or ego is also something that a lot of people don't understand. Because you don't understand it, we just have to keep exploring it. But there's a lot of that, and a lot of that is mostly to do with traumas, emotions, stuff that's happened, and information that has been fed, and just parenting, and various things that way. The third thing, just on a lighter note, we'll just end on a lighter note here. I think I like to end on a lighter note. One of the things I want to kind of bring up, it's really fun, and I'm trying to think of ways to slow down people around the eating. For most people, as I continue to talk to them about eating, they're eating way too fast. And in fact, most people will agree and say it themselves and admit to it, that they eat too fast. And that could be for multiple reasons, right? You don't have much time to eat. You want to watch this or get reading to this, and you have something else to do, and you just want to eat, and everybody else is eating fast, so everybody eats fast, right? And but I want to kind of put it out there. Oh my, I'm having a root canal this month. Oh, well, Sherilyn, maybe we should speak a little bit more on that. But ideally, I think if you have not already done it, then this is the time to explore it. This is the time to hear this information more, and how it's relevant to yourself. Absolutely. I think that's very, very important. So I'm glad you come on today, because I can't tell you how many people have wanted to go. They were planned on and going to get root canals, and they saw me, and we go through the education piece of it, and I give them a little bit more reading to do, because I feel it's important that you, and not necessarily just listen to me, but that you get a really good feel for it and feel comfortable with the decision. And that does mean some additional reading, and then I can guide people to the right information. And the idea is it changed their mind. They ended up just getting the tooth extracted. But what I'm understanding from my holistic doctor friend, that there are other ways to do it as well. So I'm not 100% sure if you're coming in with this or coming in with that, or what it is. But certainly in his last email, I got a better feel of how he's able to save the tooth. And that might be a possibility. How cool is that? So Sherilyn, please, if you're guided to give me a call or something like that, let's talk about that. So back to the eating habits, because eating habits, when I want to think of dental, I want to kind of bring this up to kind of bridge over to the eating habits, is think about crunchy and hard things. There's these things called chips, potato chips, and potato chips, I'll never forget, some of the older potato chips, although there's a lot of processing and stuff that's involved in there, are softer. But some of these other potato chips, like Vicky's potato chips, and some of the other ones, of course, if you love potato chips, I'd say, yeah, have them, but have them a whole lot less frequently, only because I'm so not crazy about vegetable oil. Oh my gosh. It doesn't even matter if it's organic vegetable oil. If you could remove one food from your diet today, that would be the number one on the list, is all vegetable oil, soybean oil, organic soybean oil, canola oil, GMO or non-GMO, doesn't matter. The idea is the processing of the vegetables. But back to the chips. What I noticed is we were eating some chips, and this was, I don't know, not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago. For some people, that might be a very long time ago, eating chips. It's the favorite for a lot of people. But the idea was I felt the cuts in my mouth. So as I was eating the potato chips, and either, I don't know if it was that night or it was the next day, I could feel that the gums, whether we want to call them micro cuts or stuff like that, was from the potato chips. And so much of our food is not hard, but potato chips are. And that is something, and popcorn. Popcorn has, the kernel's very hard and waxy on the side. And when you pop the corn, you don't get rid of that hard kernel. You don't get rid of it. It's still there, tucked in the puffy part of the popcorn part. But even that getting in the teeth can also cause cuts and micro. So I just keep that on mind when we're thinking about the foods that we eat, how some of this, especially if you have dental issues and things, that, just be aware of those foods that are very crunchy and very hard, how they can be getting in the teeth and, having these little microabrasion cuts and stuff, like tears and stuff like that. But back to the food and eating, is that eating too fast is one of those things that a lot of people will admit to. Absolutely. And how do we slow that down? So I just wanted to bring up one point here today about it, because there's definitely dozens of ways to slow down your eating. And I'll name 3 right now, and then I want to bring up a tool that you can use and use with your children as well. And one of the things is breath. So when you come into the space of where you eat, part of what I will say is, what kind of a noise have you got around you? So you can lessen the noise, just lessen the noise, because when you're chewing and you're eating, and we're told not to, talk when we're chewing, and things get quieter. So the noise around us should be quieter too. And that's one of the fundamental things to kind of slow down how we're chewing, is that the environment needs to be slower. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I did mention breath. So what you can do, and I think for all of you, before you start telling other people what to do, is to engage in these things yourself and explore them and learn about them and see how they help you. And so when you take in a couple of breaths, very slow breaths, you slow down the body, and the nervous system is more calm, and your digestive system will be working better. And I can use all the technical medical jargon for that, but that happens. The other thing is not to eat standing up. That is also something that people have more and more engaged in, eating, standing, doing things while they're eating. And that's another thing you can start to just go and sit someplace. Don't think you have to move. Don't think you have to move around and do other things. Actually, just to sit there. So those are 3 things. But to get engaged with your food, so you're starting to focus on your food, is one of the things I wanted to bring up as well, is senses. So the senses that we have with the physical, with the food, is the senses. So smell, taste, yes, hear, yes. And what I want to talk about is those senses, and use as many senses as you can. And even for children, it's not, eat with their fingers is never a bad thing. The idea is to get them engaged with what it feels like, and, not as in make an exercise or a homework or a project or anything like that. But, what does it smell like? And you can I mean, we quite often do that to foods, right? I just made some lemon. This is a really interesting thing for kids to do, adults too. I mean, this is for me. This is lemon skins. I don't know how many people use lemons, if you make lemon water or use lemon, but before you actually juice the lemon or use the lemon, you actually peel off the skin. It doesn't have to take the white stuff, the pith off, and you just lay it out. It takes probably 2 to 3 days on just a plate, nothing fancy, and it dries out. But the aroma, wow, it is something like, it's crazy. So I've had the family and a couple people come in and smell it, even while it was on the plate. And, the senses get engaged. So that's what I just want to kind of leave with today, is that with your food, in order to slow down, engage with the senses, look at it visually, the eyes, look at the food, see what it looks like, color-wise, shape-wise, anything that you want to kind of engage with. The taste, so they say chew your food very well. It's like chew your food to liquid, right? So here's the method, if you have to think about it, because people are doing smoothies and stuff these days, is to drink your food and chew your liquid. The reason why you would drink your food is enough chewing. So you chew enough so that you drink it. It takes less stomach acid, and it's easier on the digestive system to pull out the nutrients. And smoothies, the reason why you'd want to chew the smoothies, yes, you get the stomach to get into action, but also the pre-enzymes that come within the mouth are very important. And it's that chewing action that you'd want to do with the liquid. And there's a lot of calories there. When it's maybe your main calories for the day, not for the day, for the meal, then that allows you to get the most out of digesting it. Otherwise, it'll just sit like down in the stomach. If you drink a shake too fast, and I've experimented with that, it just like sits there. Your stomach had no idea it was happening. And that happens more and more with straws. So I'm not a big thing for straws either. Even with my kids, they know how I feel. As much as they wanted to do straws, and they do straws, but not the plastic ones anymore. We've got the metal ones. The idea is, that would bypass your mouth. So if you use a straw, then it bypasses the mouth, it bypasses you chewing, and sucks your mouth in. Okay, that's a whole other thing, for little kids. But the idea is that you want to have the food swish around your mouth, mix with the saliva, have a chewing aspect, so the body is preparing itself to better digest and assimilate and absorb the food that you have. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Yes, we talked about neurosis. I talked about the root canal, and then we talk about eating slower and some things to consider, and absolutely considering using your senses to slow down, to stop and smell the food, so to speak, as well. I just wanted to see if there is any questions here. Hi, everyone. And if you missed any of this, you can always go back. If you have any interest in neurosis, any interest in root canal and understanding the dental implications to systemic health problems, then that would be a good piece to listen to as well. Otherwise, I'm going to see if there's any questions here. I'm just going to wish everybody a healthy week, happy week, until next Monday's live at 5. And I mean, if there's anything going on with health or anything, just explore it, question it, and see what's kind of going on. But thank you again, everyone, for coming on board. Have a great week, and we will see you next week. If you have anything that you've learned, I'm going to say this. Please, if there's one thing that stood out that you learned, please post it so other people can get an indication of what they may like to learn about as well. And any questions, any comments, everything is, as they say, there's no bad question. So all questions are welcomed. If you want to private message me, do that too. If you don't want to kind of put it out here and that, or just say, my friend, so you're not talking about yourself. But either way, have a great week, and thanks again for coming on board. Good to see everybody. Take care. Bye for now.